Hello everyone. Today we will learn some history of anime, especially in the 90s. So first I will going to show you the video, and the second is we will walk through some question about it, or maybe a quiz. So first, here's the video.
Hello and welcome to another episode of History of Anime. In the last episode we looked at the 1980s, where anime tried many new formulas and budgets shot through the roof. Following the crash of the late 80s, in this episode we're going to be looking at the 90s. Last episode we talked about how big budget films like Akira and Royal Space Force didn't make their money back, so the industry went into a decline. The Japanese economy also crashed around this time, declining the anime industry even more. Because of this, there was little of note for the first few years. One of the early things to happen in the 90s was a brief comeback of the super robot genre. It started in 1990 with Brave X Kaiser, and again in 1992 with Tetsujin 28 Go FX, a sequel to the original. This didn't last long due to the state of the industry, and a certain mecha that would come a few years later. Akira's creator Katsuhiro Otomo returned in 1991 with Raijin Z. The movie was fairly successful but didn't reach the scale of Akira. Dragon Ball Z, the sequel to Dragon Ball, would start airing in 1993. This became super popular in both Japan and America. Merchandise was a big seller and it played on many TV stations. Compared to the last decade, real robot anime didn't get produced as much. There was less desire for the genre, but there was still desire for the Gundam franchise. In 1994, Mobile Fighter G Gundam aired and became one of the few real robot anime of its time. It still wasn't as successful as the previous decade. Ratings were low compared to other Gundam shows. Up until this time, the industry was still in a decline. Sales were down and funding was low, but in 1995, the industry's luck turned around. The movie Ghost in the Shell by Mamoru Oshii was released in 1995. The film was both successful in the box office and critically successful. This pushed the industry back to its peak of 1988, but this time, the experimental films became a success. Ghost in the Shell really changed anime after its release. It had a huge impact on the types of anime being made, and even influenced big western films like The Matrix, ultimately giving anime more recognition. Ghost in the Shell was a very important film for boosting the industry back up, and encouraging the funding of experimental films again. Another one of anime's biggest landmarks also came in 1995, as Hideaki Anno's Neon Genesis Evangelion. The massively controversial show impacted the industry so much. Firstly, it helped Ghost in the Shell boost the industry back from its declining period. It really revived the industry that had been struggling for almost half a decade. One of the more important outcomes of Evangelion was the newly made trust and freedom given to the creators of the show. After Eva's success, sponsors allowed more control to be given to directors and writers, ultimately pushing anime in a more cinematic direction. Anime became more artistic and expressive, instead of just commercial. Because of this, many shows like Serial Experiments Lain were made later in the decade. It also popularised a new style of mecha anime that would be used right up to the current day. Otaku culture grew and became more mainstream in Japan as it gained popularity from the show's controversy. Both Ghost in the Shell and Evangelion were responsible for the industry's revival, and most of the shows we have today. The super popular Sailor Moon began airing a year later in 1996. It aired weekly for 5 years, after only being given 6 months. It quickly became one of Japan's most successful franchises, especially in the merchandise, where it made over $1 million. The next again year, Princess Mononoke was released by Studio Ghibli. This was an incredibly expensive movie, but this time it paid off. The movie done fantastically at the box office in Japan, and even became a success on physical release in America. The movie was much more successful than most other anime of its time, and it was even the most successful film of the year until the release of Titanic. Like Ghibli's other films, it pushed the industry in a more creative direction, inspiring more people to push the boundaries of anime. In the same year, a show started airing that really needs no explanation. Adapted from the video game, Pokemon hit the markets to a huge success. The super successful franchise would spawn countless movies, series and specials for years to come. After the controversy and then success of Evangelion in 1995, Anno was given the opportunity to create a movie as an alternative ending to the TV series that suffered from budget cuts near the end. The movie became a massive success in the box office, and is still to this day one of the most talked about anime movies of all time. The show spawned a period of certain shows that were named post-Evangelion shows. Stuff like Brain Powered and Gasuraki were listed. Satoshi Kon made his directorial debut in 1997 with Perfect Blue. It was very revolutionary in how far it strayed from the conventional track of movie making. It was critically acclaimed worldwide. Cowboy Bebop aired first in 1998. Despite the name it has now, Bebop started off with a rocky release. It originally aired with TV Tokyo, who only aired certain episodes due to the violent content. They then cancelled the show due to poor ratings. It was then fully aired a year later on a separate TV network, but still didn't garner that much success. Bebop's success doesn't really lie in Japan, but in the West. In 2001 it aired on Adult Swim. Here it became a big success and continued to air for 4 years. It came back to air countless times again on Adult Swim, right up to 2013. Cowboy Bebop brought anime to the masses of America, and became one of the key players in bringing anime to the West. Serial Experiments Lain also aired in 1998. It was possibly the most experimental show to air in this decade, as it completely threw away the traditional storytelling style. It was very well received by critics, and became very influential for future anime. After the success of Princess Mononoke in Japan, Disney brought over the movie to the West. Due to it having the famous Disney name behind it, many people went to see it in the cinemas, and it was received very positively. This was a massive encouragement for Disney to bring more Ghibli films over in the future. So that's been the 1990s. It was an incredible decade for many reasons. Despite its poor start, the decade managed to revive itself and expand anime as an industry. Anime changed so much over the course of this decade. It became more expressive and experimental, and the industry supported this change. The 90s shaped what anime is today, so the next episode, in the final episode, we'll be looking at the 2000s to the current day.
Alright, so after the video, we arrive at the question or the quiz. So the first question is, what was the primary reason for the decline of anime industry in the early 1990s? So the answer is, the Japanese economy crashed and large budgets from previous films like Akira failed to make their money back. So in the late 80s, large budget films like Akira and Royal Space Force failed to recoup their production costs. That, and combined with the severe crash of the Japanese economy, led to a significant decline in funding and a lack of noteworthy production in the early 90s. The second question, released in 1995, which highly influential movie was critically acclaimed, succeed at the box office, and directly inspire massive Western films like The Matrix? The answer is Ghost in the Shell. Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell was a massive critical and commercial success that helped bring international recognition to anime, famously going on to heavily influence the Wachowski's blockbuster film The Matrix. Third question, how did the massive yet controversial success of Neon Genesis Evangelion impact the anime industry as a whole? The answer is, it revived a struggling industry by restoring sponsor trust in creators, giving them more artistic freedom, and pushing the anime in a cinematic direction. Neon Genesis Evangelion not only revitalized the entire anime industry, which had been struggling for half a decade, but its overwhelmingly success also convinced sponsors to grant directors and writers more creative freedom, paving the way for a more artistic and expressive era in anime. The fourth question is, which 1997 Studio Ghibli film became the most successful film in Japan's history at the time? only eventually being suppressed by Titanic? The answer is Princess Mononoke. Princess Mononoke was an incredibly expensive production for Studio Ghibli, but the risk paid off immensely when it shattered box office records, becoming the highest grossing film in Japan until Titanic was released. Its success also prompted by Disney to bring it to Western audience in 1999. The fifth question: what was the initial broadcast experience like for Cowboy Bebop when it first premiered in Japan in 1998? The answer is it was heavily censored and only a portion of its episodes were aired initially due to concern over its violent contents. When Cowboy Bebop first aired on TV Tokyo in 1998, its violent content led to significant network pushback, resulting in only selected number of episodes being broadcast before it was pulled. It later aired in its entirety on a different network and eventually found a massive audience, enduring success in the West on Adult Swim. So yeah, that's all from me, and thanks for listening and watching. So bye.